Good morning, everybody. You are listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show Utah Home Sweet Home. I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and our very special guest is Nudia Rivera. Thank you, Nudia, for joining me today.
Good morning.
Hey.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
So, guys, you are in for a special treat because I have a feeling that many of you are going to be inspired. It's a good story. I don't know the whole story, but I'm about to find out a lot of the story.
Yes.
You know, my parents were immigrants to this country, and my dad came from Japan on a boat back then. They came on a boat. I think he said the boat ride from Japan to America was about 30 days, right?
Wow.
Now we get on a plane and we're here in like 13 hours, right?
A lot shorter.
And he came to this country with $200 in his pocket. And, you know, since then he's done pretty well. He's been able to put me and my sister through college. We've lived a comfortable life. And him and my mom are, you know, they sold their business. They were supposed to retire, but he loves what he does so much that he hasn't retired yet. And so I find their story very inspiring. And it reminds me from what you shared with me the other day, kind of very similar. And my mom's from Mexico. I don't know if I ever told you that. My dad came from Japan. My mom's from Jalapa, Veracruz. My dad's
oh my
from...
gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You're Hispanic too.
Yes, yes. So they met in Salt Lake City at West High School in English class at night school. That's how they met. Trying to both learn English.
That's so awesome. That's cute.
Yeah. So you guys are going to be inspired because Nudia has a story that is one of coming here at the age of 11. Right?
Yes.
And not knowing English as your native language, but now today she's killing it as an entrepreneur. And I always tell kids, you know, people that come to me and say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about what I want to do after college, but life is so tricky, life is so tough, this and that, and they're born here in this country, and I'm like, listen, buddy, you have it so good. You have no idea how good you have it. And I start telling them stories of you know Elizabeth Cordero. I know her story a little bit, and I'll share, you know, her story, my parents' story, and then they start to realize, yeah, I really have everything that I could possibly need, including, which you and I didn't have growing up, the internet, you know, and to be able to go out there and succeed. So, if you don't mind, Nudia, diving into a little bit about your story in the beginning.
Yeah, so I was born in Mexico. My father is Mexican and my mom's Spanish.
Oh. Hey,
Yeah.
my grandpa's Spanish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my grandma's Mexican. Yeah.
And so we moved to the United States when I was 11 years old, and coming to this country was quite the difference in culture, and everything was different about the United States. And all of the things that I ever knew of this country were pretty much from like movies or Hollywood, and you know, and I knew certain words, just small words, and maybe how to say like, what's your name, something like that. So we arrived here when I was 11, and I just remember that even the school system was so different. You could go to school and get lunch here. Yeah. You know, in Mexico it was like, you don't get lunch. You take your lunch, or you take money to try to buy something from like the neighbor across like the school, you know, like her backyard was attached to the school, and you'd like get a burrito from her. Yeah. And so just quite the culture shock, and within a month I was able to communicate with the children. It is very true that when you're a child, you're kind of a sponge, and I think you're just not in your head, that you immerse yourself in whatever environment you're in. Right. And so I was able to communicate, not necessarily like really speak fluently, but about 6 months it took me, and I was pretty much communicating fully with my, you know, my friends, and so it was such a whole new world for me. We lived in a basement apartment in American Fork, Utah. Oh, nice. And had a great neighborhood friends, and I really truly loved the American, you know, just life. Yeah. I remember going with my sister, jumping on a tramp for the first time, and we were laughing hysterically. That's awesome. Like, oh, we've only seen trampolines in like circus shows, you know, and we didn't know that this was like a toy. Right. And we were just dying laughing, like of joy of being able to jump on a tramp. So just the little things that you take for granted, perhaps. when you haven't experienced otherwise. But
yes.
Growing up, my parents did the best they could, obviously being an immigrant family.
Sure.
I'm so blessed and grateful that we never had anything that was a need that wasn't met. You know, we had a roof over our heads, we always had food, but with that also there were very limited funds for anything extra. And so I always had the desire to like go and play basketball or go do gymnastics or do some extracurricular curricular activities. There's my accent. And there was just never enough money for things like that. And I just remember that at one point I was so upset of just hearing, no, there's no money. No, there's no money. No, ya no hay dinero.
Yeah.
And I was like, I refuse to live my life like this. You know, and that was a big defining moment for me. And I was in middle school, and
oh, nice.
I was like, nope, this is I'm deciding right now that I'm not going to live my life like this. And I knew at that point that it was going to be up to me to make my own money or make something of myself.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I just started hustling, working with whatever I could, whether it was like cleaning schools, cleaning homes, babysitting, paper routes, you name it, I was doing it.
Wow.
Just to make my own money. And then in high school, I had enough credits where I could get work release. I don't know if you ever did that.
Oh, no.
But as a senior, if you had enough credits, you could like leave and actually work, and you would it would be allowed. And so I was like, yes, I just wanted to work. I just wanted to make money. And so I would go and do that. I paid my way through the community college. You know, it was
nice.
I had like 3 jobs at one point just so I could like go to school. So that hustle and ambition has always been within me. And I got in the real estate industry in 2006.
Yes.
And I got into the title and escrow side of it, became an escrow officer 6 months into it.
Nice.
Did that for 9 years, and then for a good amount of period, probably about a 4-year period, I really had an idea of really disrupting this industry, because I felt like it was so old school and boring, and everyone was doing the same thing. And here I am at the time I was like 29 years old, you know, and I was killing it. I was the top producer in my company.
Nice.
I was always, again, just outworking everyone. I didn't mind working the 12-hour days. You know, when my friends were out partying, and not that I didn't enjoy life, but I was working. You know, like the sacrifices that you make for years to get to your goals and where you want to get to. But so I just thought, you know, all these people are coming into a title company, closing on their most important asset, their most important investment, which is a home, or selling the house for the first time, and they are cashing out on their equity, and they just feel like another number when they come in here, and they just feel like they're just being pushed some paper and like, okay, next. And I just thought, there's got to be more to this industry than just this. And so for about a 4-year period, I began to really immerse myself into learning what it would take to be a business owner. Because although I was so good at my role and I was succeeding, I was top producer, I knew that there was going to be a completely different skill set to actually be able to run a business. And those things I didn't know. And so I read a ton of books. I interviewed multiple business owners within my industry, outside of my industry. I created a mastermind group, which Matt Atkinson was a part of.
I remember. And Riley.
Riley Rogers.
That's how I found out about it. I was offended.
We should have called you. So there were about 12 of us, and man, that group was so amazing, because a lot of the people in it were doing bigger things than I. You know, I was still an employee at the time. They were their own business owners, and they were really heavily investing in real estate, and they would sometimes talk about terms that were so new to me, and I had no idea what they were talking about. But what that did is that I got very uncomfortable with people that were doing bigger things than me. And you know how, do you know Jim Rohn? He's like the mentor of all mentors. And he always talks about how you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And although I was the smallest fish in the sea, in a sense, in that group,
Yeah.
I started the group, and it was uncomfortable at times, because again, they were having these conversations, and I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And but I learned so much, and we really pushed each other to go for our goals, and we learned so much together, and that group lasted about 2 years.
Awesome.
And they really empowered me to just go for it, you know? And,
Yeah.
and so finally, after, you know, studying so much about this, I was actually on my way to Washington, D.C. for a conference. And I had a layover in Denver, the Denver airport, and I was going to write down my pros and cons, whether I should stay with where I was at and continue growing, you know, helping them grow that business, or whether I should finally launch like this, like almost art that I had in my head. I'm very creative, like you as well. Like I love the arts and everything, so I'm very artistic in that way. And like, what if should I finally launch this thing that's been in my head for like almost 4 years of changing this up, you know? And all of a sudden, Yoshi, before I could write anything down, I just had this overwhelming feeling come over me. And tears just started to come down my eyes and in my face, and I was like, wow, this is it. You know, I don't need to write anything down. That was another defining moment for me, where it was like, okay, that's all I needed. It was just bigger than me. It was more inspired. And I said, okay. So 6 months later, I launched Novation Title.
Nice.
And here we are 5 years later. We're
amazing.
It's been so crazy.
And you opened up another office, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah. So we have our main office is in Midvale.
Nice.
And then we have a Stansbury Park office, and about to open up a third in Taylorsville. So it's been a wild ride. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, it's been sleepless nights, stress, heartaches, heartbreaks, you know, some people leaving that you're like, that you invest so much in, and it's just been so crazy. But I'll tell you something, what it's created out of me, and like the person I've had to become to get to be where I'm at, is like, I just wouldn't change it for the world.
Awesome. That's awesome. What an amazing story. You know what I love about the story is there's few people that I've spoken to that had this initial drive at such a young age like you. Like, for those of you who don't know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, YouTube search him, right? Google him.
Gary's the best.
Yes. And Gary talks about being in grade school and selling, you know, cards or whatever. He was always an entrepreneur. As a young kid, hated school, did terrible in school, and obviously after he got done with school, just went into the, you know, right away, just started going into being an entrepreneur, helping his parents, and now he's huge, right? And it's interesting because I probably didn't learn to be driven, and I don't know if learn or just, I don't know what the day happened when I was like, I want to do this, and I was driven about it. But I was probably a young adult, like, after high school for sure, right? During junior high, it's so impressive to hear you say that you made that commitment and that decision at junior high. Junior high, I think I was still just trying to play baseball. You know, I was still trying to play soccer or something. So that's so impressive. Okay, so very cool. I want to dive into, just real quick, I forgot, I wanted to ask you this. How many siblings do you have, just out of curiosity? I know of one sister.
Yeah, I have a sister and a brother.
Okay.
And I'm the oldest, so.
Okay, and that was my next question is, where do you fall in that?
Yeah, I'm the mom of the technically.
Gotcha. And is your sister second and your brother's the youngest, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I didn't know you have a brother because he helped you in your, I want to hear more about, so Nudia does an amazing thing every year, and it changes. I remember seeing a video where you experimented being homeless, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you after the show, Bailey and I are actually doing something with the homeless.
Oh,
I remember seeing your brother in that video, actually, because he was getting the release form signed.
Yes, that's right.
Before we go to commercial break, can you share a little bit about what it is that you do each year? You put on some event or you do some type of experience to raise money to go to a certain cause. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's called Dreamers Foundation. When I was, at one point when I was about 26 years old, and I was just kind of running the rat race.
Yeah.
Just working so much and hitting my goals, and then I would go and buy something, and then I found myself being very unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Although I was making good money, for my age, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, this isn't it.
Right.
Because what is, success without fulfillment or
Sure.
purpose?
Sure.
And so I went to a Tony Robbins event back then, and at that point I discovered that I really have always been about contribution, even since I was a little girl. And I'm like, that's it. I need to give back. I need to do more with this. So I created Dreamers Foundation,
Nice.
which is a nonprofit that gives to already established nonprofits. And so I put on one big event a year where it's a really fun event, and then we raise all kinds of money, and then I just will donate it to whatever charity of choice.
Yeah.
And it's very important for me to give all the money away. I actually put a lot of money into it myself as well. And the only thing that gets covered, it's literally the hard cost for that event, and then we give everything
Gotcha.
to that charity. So it's been really fun. I'm sad I can't do it this year. Obviously, we can't have big events, but
Right.
But yeah, we did, one year we gave back to VOA for the youth homeless shelter downtown, and
Nice.
was inspired to do that social experiment of being homeless for a day.
Yes, yes. Is that on YouTube? Can people find that?
Yeah, if you go to Facebook and you search Dreamers Foundation,
Okay.
you will be able to find it. It might be a little bit down
Yeah.
You might have to scroll a little bit down.
It was like 2018.
It was, I think, 2017.
Okay.
16 or 17. So
Got
yeah,
it.
but you'll see it if you go to Dreamers Foundation on Facebook.
Gotcha. And how did that experiment go? So just so the listeners know, Nudia, you pretended to be homeless, right? And
Yeah.
went and downtown and
Yeah, so I dressed down.
yeah.
And I even wore some, darker contacts and dressed down, and I had a camera crew. So we went to two different spots downtown. One was Liberty Park, and one was right by, the temple where the mall is.
Yeah.
And so I had different signs that said different things, like single mom trying to make it to Colorado. Just all, I don't even know where I came up with this stuff, but I had different signs.
Sure.
And I would just change up the signs and just literally beg for money and ask for money. And at first it was so weird because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a liar. It was weird.
Yeah.
But there were so many people that were so kind and actually really cared to help me. There were also a lot of people that just avoided me completely.
Oh,
they
sure.
just would literally, I was sitting on a bench and they would walk around us, the furthest away from me as they could.
Right.
To not acknowledge me. I felt at times invisible.
Okay.
But something that was very special was that children, did not judge me. They saw me. They looked at me.
Yeah.
They acknowledged my presence of being a human being.
Right.
And that was really, really cool to just know that hate,
Yeah.
judgment,
Yeah.
all of that, you're not born with that.
Right.
You're taught that.
Right.
And especially now with everything that's going on in our country,
Yeah.
it's something that you learn, and I think that children can teach us a lot.
Yeah.
In that sense of they're just another human being, and just because they might have a different opinion than you doesn't mean that you can't love them or just have some respect there. Because as soon as you judge someone based on their belief, you don't leave room to love them.
Right. Absolutely. That's amazing. And then people that obviously did give you money, I saw it on the video, you ended up telling them it was, an experiment because they had to sign a release form to be on the video. So, very cool. Did you see anyone you know?
No, I didn't, but you know what? Really cool, actually, the highlight of the story was when we were at the park, I was begging for money, and this guy brought me some coins, and then when my brother went back, that's the part you saw in the video.
Yes.
My brother went back to have the form released, the
release form
signed, and he he said he didn't really want to sign it. And my brother asked him why. He said, well, I'm actually homeless.
Oh my gosh.
I live in my car.
Oh wow.
And my brother asked him, why did you then give her the money
Yeah.
if you need it? And
Yeah.
his response was, it just seemed like she needed it more than I.
Wow. Amazing.
That was like, when we all watched it back,
Yeah.
we were all just crying.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because we're so out of all the, like, you know, the money we raised, like, for that day, just
Yeah.
the money people gave me, I just went back and gave it to him.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
have
yeah.
this. And
Right.
so it was, wow, like, it was so impactful.
Amazing. Holy cow. Wow. Yeah, I was wondering if you'd seen anyone you knew. Like, I can imagine if I walked by, I'd be like, Nudie, I didn't know Novation Title was doing that bad. I mean, come on, let's go get you lunch.
I kind of wish I would have, like, ran into someone. I would have been like, hey, you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah. This is how we pay the rent for Novation Title. Don't tell anyone.
oh my gosh, it wouldn't even cover the snacks, you know, but.
Right, right. Okay, so we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, it is nightmare story time, and you know what that means. We hear a nightmare that happened to somebody, and then we talk about the lesson that was learned from it, because maybe I have my fair share of nightmare stories as a real estate investor. And if I can share those with people so that they don't have to go through those heartaches, then, you know, it was worth it.
Yes, so many of them.
Yes, yes. So stay tuned, we will be right back. Okay.
Did you know the snap leash is the most
Yes.
convenient leash in the
That's it.
world? That's
Okay, I sent it to you a messenger so I can
Oh, cool.
look at it later.
Oh, perfect. Maybe we can plug it in the
Yeah, that's what I was
vlog.
thinking.
Oh, nice,
So I
nice.
sent it to you.
Very cool, like some snippets and stuff. Ironically, Bailey and I are filming a documentary called First Day of Homelessness. Because the homeless person wasn't always homeless. They went to bed in a house, slept in a bed, woke up that morning, and when they walked out of that house, they never came back, and that was their first night of homelessness. And what happened in that last 24 hours, or last 7 days, or last 30 days to lead them to there? And so we're going downtown and interviewing homeless people to see if they'd be open to sharing their first night of homelessness.
Wow.
So, and then we're gonna put this documentary together, and so yeah, it just came to me when you were
We're
saying
not
that.
just going up and asking people, hey, can we interview you? We're
Yeah.
gonna give them the duffel bag, right? Full
Yeah,
of stuff. And
exactly.
I'm just gonna be like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course, of course.
Yeah.
And my goes more smooth.
Yeah.
All right, we are back. You are listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show Utah Home Sweet Home. And I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and our very special guest is Nudia Rivera. Thank you again for joining. So it is Nightmare Story time, guys. And Nightmare Story, I would say, you know, we've had some just names that of people you probably know. Matt Strong, Matt Atkinson, Trevor Thompson, Randall Wall. I mean, these are names that you and I both know. And I learned a lot from everyone's nightmares.
Yes.
I probably, you know, get as much benefit interviewing these people just on that one nightmare story. So, you've got a story you were just briefing me on about something that happened not in Utah, not to you, but you just know of it, and it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was very expensive.
Yes.
Very expensive mistake. So I believe it happened in the Midwest, and for all of our listeners who may not be aware of maybe the real estate world or title insurance, I feel most people don't know what title insurance is.
Right.
So pretty much when you purchase a property, your seller buys what we call an owner's policy that protects the history of the title against any liens, encumbrances, defects to the title of the property, sometimes fraud. So this is really different because insurance will usually protect you in the future
Yes.
for future incidents.
Right.
Title insurance on property actually insures you for the past.
Yes, that makes sense. Can you give an example just so listeners that have no idea what it is?
So let's say that somebody did some work on the property.
Okay.
You know, someone remodeled or,
Like a
added.
contractor.
Yeah, a contractor did some work and they never got paid for it. They liened the property. You then 5 years later buy that property.
Yeah.
And a few months they come and knock on your door and say, hey, you guys actually owe us $15,000 because it's attached to your property. I know it wasn't you,
Yeah.
but there's a lien on your home.
Right.
At that point, you'd probably be like, what?
Yeah.
Why? You know, so
Yes.
that's when title insurance would kick in.
Gotcha.
So that's just an easy example.
Which is why you guys are so important, title companies.
Yes.
Yes.
Which with this nightmare story, it's like, please just like, I mean, it's not required by law in the state of Utah, but
Yeah.
it's a part of the real estate purchase contract where the seller will protect you.
Yeah.
And then you as the buyer, your lender does require a title insurance policy. So what anyone that's out there buying a house right now,
Yes.
you're going to purchase a title insurance policy. It's just a one-time fee at the closing that
Yeah.
will protect your lender.
Yes.
And your seller is purchasing one for you to protect you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the nightmare story, I'm pretty sure it happened in the Midwest. And so it was a big lot, I know that.
Okay.
In acres, I don't know the numbers
Yeah,
exact,
yeah.
but there was a home that was built in between both properties.
Yeah. Wow.
So the line boundary, the boundary line was in the middle of the home.
Amazing.
And how you do that? I'm like,
Yeah.
you should at least, everyone out there who owns the property,
Yeah.
at least have a good idea of where those boundary lines
Yeah.
are.
Exactly.
But for whatever reason, it was confusing. They built a home on top of it. And so of course, a few years later, the claim comes in of, and I don't know the numbers of how expensive it was in the Midwest,
Yeah.
but it was expensive. So
Sure.
title insurance kicked in. Obviously that home, those property owners didn't have to pay out of pocket aside just, what's it called? I'm drawing a blank with when you have a claim and you pay out of pocket.
Oh yeah, a deductible.
Yes. Aside from their deductible.
Yeah.
And then title insurance paid. The title
Gotcha.
company paid to
Oh my
tear down the house.
Oh, jeez.
And and oh my gosh, I just thought, wow, that is a really expensive mistake, and
Yes.
what a nightmare that is.
No
So,
kidding.
isn't
Do you know if
that
they went on and
insane?
rebuilt the house like where it should have been?
I don't know. Maybe, but I'm like that. Oh, that is a really bad nightmare.
That is a really bad nightmare. Holy cow. I mean, so obviously they didn't look at probably the plat map, right, that they get at title. They definitely didn't get a survey, because if they would have gotten a survey, the surveyor would have flagged off the lot and they would have
Yes.
known exactly where it was. Guys, very important probably to do a survey during your due diligence, not, just to be clear, like when would you do this survey? While you're under contract in your due diligence period, not obviously after you've bought it, because you were planning on building a home here. Now you've bought it and you found out, oh crap, I can't build it here. Now you might not want the property anymore. So definitely a lesson there would be to look at the map.
Yeah.
Look at the plat map.
Yeah, just make sure you're represented by a really good real estate agent, and that the title company has the right data and information. We have access to that through the county recorder. So
Yes.
and an additional thing is before you start building anything, just really making sure you're getting, especially if it's close to a boundary line, I would get the city involved to make sure.
Yeah.
You're following code too. But
Yes.
so those would be some of the advice.
Yeah, good advice. I think Jeff Brailio told me a couple weeks ago on the show that one of the biggest, what was the word he used, problems or biggest things that come up in real estate transaction is boundary lines throughout America, right? Just easements, boundary lines, not knowing where things are exactly. I know somebody who owned a property, several acres up in like Vernal or something, like up there. They live here in Salt Lake, but they have this extra land, and I think they use it whenever they want to go four-wheeling or something. But they don't go there often. And it had been several years, and they decided to go up there, and they went up there, and there was something, like the neighbor had built a fence, to separate his fancy lot and their lot, and they were like, wow, that looks like probably could be on our, but it's just all open land up there, right?
Yeah.
So I think, they're like, I think this fence is like on our side. And so anyways, they got a surveyor and it was 10 feet on their side. And they'd been that way for like 3 or 4 years. So they, of course, now have to like do a search on the county assessor to see who's the owner, to then find out how to get in contact with them, to tell them that they built a fence 10 feet on their property, and it became a huge legal nightmare.
Yeah.
And of course, the person didn't want to lose the money that he just spent on building this brand new fence, and now he has to move it over, and that's bad news for him in every way, shape, and form. And so,
Yeah, a lot of times they're really like fence, we hear more of that.
Yes.
Where just the fence
Right,
was built on
right.
the wrong side
Yeah,
or
not a
made
house.
15 feet over. Yeah. In this case, I'm like, oh my gosh, they literally built a house. And it was similar, it was just a rural area, So
Yeah.
it was just, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just insane.
That
you
is
literally
insane.
have to knock down the house. It's not your lot. It's not yours.
Yeah. Can you imagine being the person who has to notify them? Like, it's your lot, right? And you're like, oh, geez, let me knock on their door and tell
Oh my god.
them. That's when you just hire an attorney and
Deliver
let
the
them
bad
tell
news.
me.
Yeah, you don't even want to go there.
No
I
kidding.
have some really bad news for you today.
Yeah. You don't
That's
know me.
really bad news.
But we're literally neighbors. Like, I need to live in this half of your house now.
Yeah.
Because it's on my side of my
Oh
lot.
my gosh.
Oh, geez. Okay, guys. So when we come back, we're going to ask Nudie about entrepreneurship because I'm very impressed on how she's been able to grow her business. She talked about how she was an escrow officer and then wanted to own her own company and now is about to open her third. That's so impressive. So let's chat about entrepreneurship when we get back from this next commercial break. I hope you guys learned the lesson in the nightmare story. Always get a survey if you have any questions about where your property line is.
Yes.
Yes, and then Nudi's going to share some tips with us on entrepreneurship. We're going to ask her about tips on mindset. We ran into was it Atlanta? No, so this was kind of funny. Before we go to commercial break, I get on an airplane here in Salt Lake City, and then I get a text as I sit down from a friend. And he's like, hey, you going to Atlanta? And I'm like, what the heck? And so I stand up and I'm like, does somebody know I'm on this plane? Because it was like a 5:50 in the morning flight, right?
Yeah.
So sure enough, one of my best friends is on that flight and I had just walked past him down the aisle, not that I didn't see him. So then we get to Atlanta and he has a layover. We're both going to Florida, but I'm going to Key West. He's going somewhere else. And he's like, let's go grab lunch. So I think we go to like TGI Fridays and we go to sit down and all of a sudden I hear, Yoshi. And I turn around, it's you.
That is so funny. I know, that was so random.
I know.
Like totally different stage.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that is true.
And you were just
So I
coming from
remember
Tony Robbins,
Yeah,
right? Which
that's
is the whole point of
right.
why I just shared that story,
Yeah.
because of mindset.
Yes, that is so cool.
So when we come back from commercial break, we will dive into tips that Nudie can share with you guys if you're thinking about starting a business, whatever it is. You want to start a landscaping business, you want to start a title business. There's a lot of principles that apply to all of this. So we're going to dive into that when we get back.
Hi, I'm
All right.
Yeah, I can tell you love this.
Yes.
For you.
Yeah. Thank you. I enjoy it. I don't know if you know this commercial's me too.
Oh, it is.
As a tool to help break the ice.
That's so cool.
I used to read the commercials live, and so I would tell my guests, hey, when we get to commercial break, I'm gonna read it live, so you can't talk to me and stuff. But then I was like, I kinda need a break, because I'm talking. So I ended up just recording them. Then I just play them, and one promotes my dog leash, and this one promotes my book, my child abuse book. So I get to control the commercials, and I'm gonna promote my own stuff. So
you have,
And remember,
I need to hear about this book later.
yeah, absolutely.
Focus on rehabilitation.
Okay. All right, guys, we are back. You are listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki. Our very special guest today is Nudie Rivera. Thank you again for joining us.
Yes.
Yes.
Say yes.
Say yes. Exactly. So those of you who know Tony Robbins, say yes is a very big part of the culture.
Yes.
Yes. Don't say no. When you're asked to do something and makes you uncomfortable, say yes anyway.
Say yes to life.
Yes, say yes to life. So awesome. So if you don't mind diving into the beginning of entrepreneurship for us, you talked about you read a lot of books. And books, can only get you so far, and then it's action that gets you, education, books, all that stuff gets you so far. But then really it's action taking, right? What was that like? Run me through that first day of like, all right, so I'm gonna do this, and now I need an office space. So I'm gonna go and, did you go like with the broker and look at a bunch of office spaces, or to find, where Novation Title would be, or was that not even the first thing? Was location not even the first thing? It was, who am I gonna recruit to bring with me? How did that look?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was everything. I think that once you're about to birth a company, that's what it feels like. I've never had babies, by the way, but not yet. But it's everything, So, and I think because I was in my head planning it for so long, of like, what would this look like, and interviewing title company owners of what were your biggest, hurdles through this at the beginning, and it did a lot of my due diligence and research. I think just having those years to kind of put it together, it was, it only took me 6 months to just do it and take that major action. But I think it was all the pieces, and I think everyone's so different because I love entrepreneurship and I love business, but I would say that one of my very favorite things about business is marketing and branding, because I'm so creative,
Yes.
And so for me, it was, those things were also very important, like how am I going to brand this?
Right.
How am I going to come up with my logo? And does the logo look like? And what does it mean? And what's the purpose behind that? And then, definitely my staff was like key. I think that was the most important thing back then.
Yes.
And I will tell you, through everything that I've learned and all my experiences with all the challenges and all the, it's been tough, at times. To this day, talent and the people on your team that are with you are everything.
Yes.
It is the most important thing to anyone in business.
Right.
And I actually just took a scaling business program from Stanford.
Oh, nice.
I was accepted to this program.
Wow.
Through, it was amazing. I was like, oh my God. And it was made for Latino entrepreneurs.
Oh, nice.
So that we can scale our businesses to next levels.
Oh, fantastic.
And through that program, I learned a lot of things, but still one of the top priorities is who you have with you, your talent, your people. And so I would say for sure, whether you're about to launch a company or any type of business, or maybe you're wanting to create a team, the people on there will be the key for your success. And what's cool is that as you succeed, everyone succeeds.
Yes.
Simon Sinek, I don't know if you follow him, but
glasses.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He has a book called The Infinite Game.
Okay.
And for anyone that was wanting to start a business, I would definitely read that. And it just talks about the kind of the spiritual side of a business, and not talking like, I don't necessarily want to get super into that, into depths of that, but and Tony Robbins even says that that business is a spiritual game. And Simon really goes deep into this, is like, are you the type of leader that's just in it for themselves? Are you the type of leader that's just money driven and that's making decisions based upon just you and what's best for you?
Right.
Or are you the type of leader that really empowers their people to rise and to hit their goals and to reach their dreams? And are you the type of leader that is making decisions on what's best for everyone involved?
Right.
And that's who I feel I am, and that's who I want to become more of.
Sure.
Is that leader, that I want everyone to win and to grow and to succeed and to hit their goals and to be able to take the vacations they want to, and to be able to go and do some of the some of the things that maybe they've lost in their life, like some other passions.
Yeah.
Like you were just talking to me about your passion and
Yeah.
in the entertainment industry and how you love it and how you feel so happy
Right.
and joyful while you're in it. And I think that if we can be examples of that to people, whether it's through business or any type of leadership, that's everything, you know.
Yes.
Just people being able to really be happy
Yep. Yep.
and be fulfilled and connect to pieces of themselves that they perhaps have lost along the way.
Yes, yes, I love that. I totally agree. I feel that it's one thing to be a boss, it's another thing to be, like Simon says, a leader, and it's another thing to be a leader who is part of the team, not necessarily, you know, like, he's like, are you the commander? I think I heard him say an example. Are you the commander that tells your soldiers to go fight, or are you the commander that says, let's go together and fight?
And you're in the front line.
Yeah, you're in the front line with them, leading by example, and then they trust you more because you're putting yourself out there on the line as well.
Absolutely.
And yeah, such a huge key. Thank you for sharing that. So then, how many employees, the day that you went Open Innovation Title, did you have come with you? Was it just you in the beginning?
There were 5 of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I always learned how to build my own book of business
Uh-huh.
in my 9 years of it, right?
Yeah.
So I was out there marketing and building my relationships and knocking on the doors. And when the market crashed, I was on the streets, freaking door knocking.
Yeah.
Not like obviously, you know, like the public, but
Yeah.
I was in loan officers,
Yeah,
companies, real estate companies. It was definitely doing whatever it takes, you know, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's I built it. I learned how to build it. I learned sales skills along the way, and Matt Atkinson always actually it makes fun of me. He's like, when I met you, because it was a while ago.
Yeah.
I was newer, and I've always been just so ambitious and like so direct, you
Yeah,
know. So
yeah.
I was that driver of like, I want to work with you. Send me some deals. Like,
Yeah.
what can I do to work with you? What can I do? I was that.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like that. And so he always says like, you used to always go for the right for the jugular.
Yeah.
And then obviously I've learned a lot, and I'm a completely different person now. But so yeah, just learned how to build my own book of business. So when I started the company, I had my book of business. You
Yeah.
know, some of it definitely stayed with the company I was with because
Yeah.
that was business they gave to me.
Yeah.
But I was able to actually start
Yeah.
my business with having like money
Right.
being put into it. So
Right.
it was definitely a blessing.
Yeah.
It definitely served us very well.
Very cool. Okay.
So yeah, but about five of us. 5 or
Nice.
6.
Nice. And so then how did you find this location in Midville? I mean, it sounds like you're obviously proactive. Did you just find it by yourself, or did you hire a broker?
So we at one point we had our small office with my old company.
Okay.
When I was still an employee, and we had almost like a satellite little branch
Mhm.
in the same building. And when I was about to launch my own, I just thought I don't want to be moving so far. So within the same building,
Oh,
I
sure.
found a different suite.
Oh,
So
nice.
it just kind of worked out for me. But I mean,
Smart.
I always definitely I definitely knew what location I wanted to be in, and
Yeah.
I wanted to stay close by where it was so central for my clients, right?
Yeah.
Everything kind of revolves around what is the best thing for my clients. I always put myself in their shoes
Yes.
of what would they like. You really have to know, you have to become obsessed with your clients. This is something I learned at Tony Robbins Business Mastery.
Gotcha.
A lot of times people become obsessed with their own brand and their own company.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that.
And I'm like, oh, like, I'm kind of, I mean, it's hard not to be
Yeah,
obsessed
it's your
with your
baby.
baby.
Yeah.
But become even more obsessed with your customers.
Gotcha.
And so learning every single thing about them, their pain, what keeps them up at night, what they're obsessed with, what they like to do, what brands they love to follow,
Yes.
what they like to buy, what they like to do for their lifestyle, what they like to do for hobbies. So once you're able to really learn and become obsessed with your clients,
Yes.
it gets really fun in creating new ways to help serve them at like higher and higher levels.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Holy cow. You just gave me like a flood of ideas that came to my head.
Seriously,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful, and that's really when it gets really fun.
Yes.
You know, when you're just thinking about them, like, okay, if I was a consumer wanting to buy a home, like, what would I want to feel like when I would come into a title company to sign?
Right.
If I was a real estate agent and I, you know, like your operations need to be on point, and then because obviously if you're just great at marketing and selling, but then your operations are not doing
Right.
well, you have to do both. You have to
Yeah.
have the good balance. But I will say, going after perfection is something that will kill you. Like, perfection does not exist.
Right.
And even going through the Stanford business program, some of these companies, corporations that were gigantic,
Yes.
international companies, they also had their struggles and their challenges and the growing pains. So the
Sure.
perfection just does not exist.
Right.
The Apples of the world, the Googles of the world, in fact, some of the study cases we did, we learned about some of their hiccups. And so what I'm saying is, stop going after perfection.
Yeah.
It is non-existent.
Yeah.
So what you do work on is how to become better, how to avoid that, and be smart about the process, right?
Right.
And so don't expect perfection, but definitely expect growth and how to never make
Yes.
those mistakes again and how to be better.
Yep. Yep. I love that because I've seen so many people struggle with paralysis of analysis because they want it perfect. My business card has to be perfect, right? Like, really, it just needs your number on there. You know, it just needs to be able to, people even know how to get in contact with you, but no, it's got to have the little sparkle here and the picture of me
Yeah.
there. And I, you know, I remember when I first got into entrepreneurship, I thought the same. Like, when I put together my first website, man, did I overthink that. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, and the button needs to do this and click there. And yes, I can see how perfection can paralyze a lot of people. And so, thank you for sharing that. That's really good information, guys. Bailey, keep that in mind, because Bailey likes perfection. We were talking about this before.
He's like, yes. Yeah, it's just non-existent. It will really kill you.
Yeah.
Like I always tell my team too, I don't expect perfection, but they take such pride in their work
Yeah.
that once a mistake happens, I mean, they've like been in tears before about it. They
Yeah.
truly care. They feel really, really bad about the situation. I don't need to beat them up. Obviously, I'm not happy about it, but let's find a solution. That's always the number one thing I say. Let's own the mistake.
Yeah.
So you own it, and we find solutions, and that's what we do.
Got
And
it.
then how do we never make this mistake again?
Yes.
So, yeah, I just would never. I wouldn't focus on that at all. I would focus on. I would think it's way more valuable
Yeah.
to focus on your staff and how to help them, train them, if you have the right systems and if you have the right person in the right position.
Yeah.
Give them more of that time of that type of training and
Yep.
coaching them to become better
Yep.
than perfect.
Gotcha.
It's just not real.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Okay, so now let's take this. Let's give. I want the listeners out there to, if you could talk to yourself. You've had this drive since junior high school.
Yeah.
I love it. If Nudia today could go back, let's just say some listener out there, he's in high school. Maybe he or she is in high school. He or she is in junior high. Maybe they're in college, and they are loving what you're saying. They're like, yeah, I want to be in control of my destiny. I don't want to punch in, punch out. And maybe they're already doing that and they want to quit that. Can you share some tips on that young entrepreneur, soon to be, how to become that entrepreneur? Like, if you could go back and talk to Nudia back then to shortcut the path from where she was there to where you are today in lesser time, can you share some tips with people out there?
I think I could write a book. Because I think there's
All the
been
lessons,
so many
right?
lessons.
Yes.
The first thing I would tell the youth out there is I love you so much because that's our future.
Right.
And I wish that in school they would teach us some of the things that the self-development world teaches.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that anything that you really truly want can come to life. And you know, in school they kind of show you, like, if you become a doctor or attorney or these specific things, but they don't tell you if you become an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
They kind of cap you. They kind of limit the youth, and I wish they didn't, because
Right.
you're just limiting these kids. They're like, oh, well, you could make, $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, those were the conversations I was being taught when I was
Right.
in high school. And so I was like, oh, and your mind
Yeah.
just thinks 150,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever, 200.
Exactly.
And you think that's the high thing.
Right.
And I just
Right.
want to tell all of you kids that are ambitious and driven and want to start something in this life that is not true.
Right.
That is not the limit of your income. You can become a millionaire. You can make millions of dollars. It's whatever you want. It's out there.
Right.
That's the first thing. Protect your mind.
Got
That
it.
is the most important thing. Feed your mind with people that inspire you. Hang around people that empower you, that really push you to be better, that teach you things that you don't know of how to become a better business owner, a better entrepreneur. And the sacrifices that you'll make now, and then while your friends are all partying and playing, not that I didn't. I
Yeah.
also had my fun.
Sure.
I'm not saying that, but the sacrifices that you make now will completely pay off
Mm-hmm.
in the future. So protect your mind, read the right books, invest in yourself,
Yes.
and the world is yours.
I love it. I love it.
Anything you want, you can accomplish.
And I think it was before the show. Maybe it was during the show, but you'd mentioned. No, it was on the show. The 5 closest people you hang around is who you become. That was on the show, right?
Yeah,
Or before?
yeah,
On the
yeah.
show, okay. I think that was a valuable tip too, is you're a
Yeah.
young adult and you come out into the entrepreneur world like you did. You surround yourself with people in a mastermind, which was genius. Brilliant. As the
Yeah.
English would say, it was brilliant. Bloody brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm still hanging around groups that make me uncomfortable that are way higher levels now too, And
Yep.
it's a continuous growth. Always be a student. Always be a student. The point that you get to where you're like, I know this.
Yeah.
I know everything. I just, it's not.
Yeah.
The more I learn, the more I know. I realize that there's so much more to learn. So always be a
Exactly.
student.
Exactly. I love it. How can people follow you?
Probably the best way is through social media. So my Instagram is Nuria, Nuria
Okay.
.p
Okay.
Rivera, Rivera.
Wonderful. Well, Nuria, thank you so much again for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate all the valuable lessons, tips that you shared with us
Yes.
and all the listeners. And so thank you.
Thanks so much. It was so fun.
Definitely. All right, guys, you've been listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM, the show Utah Home Sweet Home. I hope you all have a spectacular rest of the day.